بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. So in this lesson, inshallah, we'll be discussing أقسام الراوي. So yesterday we discussed the types of hadith based on the number of ruwat. And then we said the khabar wahid, because of the shubha of ittisal and the shubha, slight shubha that could occur depending on the rawi, then we need to analyze the ruwat. So what are the things we are looking for in a rawi? Okay, so we have here ثم الراوي في الأصل قسمان. If you analyze properly, we will say here there are two types of rawi. There are two types of rawi. القسم الأول, it's not القسم الأول, it has number one in your books I think, but I just added that القسم الأول makes it easy to understand. القسم الأول is راو معروف بالعلم والاجتهاد. Now, there's different philosophies of analyzing this. One philosophy is you look at the rawi, does he have dhabt, meaning is he able to preserve or memorize, and does he have adala? Okay, so let me look at it here. So if you study the Usool hadith like Ibn Hajar rahmatullahi alayhi and the muhaddithun, they would say basically as-sahaba kullum udul. You have the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Sahaba all udul, none of them lie, and they don't discuss the dhabt. Then from tabi'i onwards, you discuss the ruwat in terms of the adala, dhabt, etc. In the Hanafi Usool fiqh books, we look at the rawi. We look at the rawi from Sahabi as well. Not in terms of him lying, because Sahaba kullum udul, radiyallahu anhu wa radu an. However, we look at it in terms of his fiqh. His fiqh. Because we do find certain instances where other Sahabi did not accept the narration of another Sahabi, whatever reason it may be. So we also look at the fiqh and the state of Sahabi, not in terms of he's going to lie. The later on tabi'un, tabu tabi'in, well, they're tabu tabi by name, but some of them they are munafiq amongst them, some of them have political purposes, bribery, etc. Those have all been sieved out. But in the Sahaba's time, we look at the rawi, because what do we say? Is that the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, they would narrate hadith, sometimes the exact words, sometimes the ma'na. So when you narrate the ma'na, the issue is, or the question is it have you understood correctly? And for you to understand something correctly and transmit correctly is based on your fahm, fiqh. So what we say is not as a rule of thumb, but when you have contradiction or apparent contradiction, or when there are issues in the hadith, we have multiple reasons to give one preference over the other. Would you choose this hadith or the other hadith? So one thing that would give preference is who is the rawi, who is the sahabi narrating this? His understanding, his fiqh, his ilm, him being trusted in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to give fatwa, that is something we would give his hadith tarjih to. One of the reasons we'll choose his hadith. So what we're saying is that those ruwa, meaning the sahaba, not after but the sahaba, from amongst the sahaba we have some who are known from the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they were muftis. The Prophet sent them to teach deen, the sahaba sent them to teach deen. They were giving fatwa. So we have the khulafa al-arba'a, meaning all of them are well known for their ilm. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali. Yes? Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Umar, Zayd ibn Thabit, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen. So all of these people, these Sahaba, in the Sahaba's time were known as Ahlul Ilm. So when they narrate something, we trust them that much that we will accept their narration in all cases. If there's contradiction between themselves, then we have to give tarjih over them. But meaning, we would not say, this doesn't make sense to us. Once a sanad is sahih and these great kibaru sahaba narrating something, we would trust them that there is no mistake in that, not mistake in the understanding of the hadith. Fahim. So that's why we say, فَإِذَا صَحَّتْ إِنَّكَ رِوَايَتُهُمْ. If the chain to Abdullah ibn Abbas, the chain to Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is sahih, and Rasulullah, yes, يكون العمل بروايتهم أولى من العمل بالقياس. Doing amal on their riwayah is better than doing amal upon qiyas. And qiyas mean here, one is qiyas, like we have maqis alayna maqis, and qiyas also mean like usul musallama. It also means usul musallama, for example. Like we have rules that are understood throughout the Sharia. Yes, rules that are understood throughout the Sharia. We look at all the hadith from the Quran, from the hadith, we come to a certain principle that we've understood this. For him, like for example, one principle we understand is no one person will bear the sin of another person. Many hadiths, many Quranic verses, that's like a qiyas, like a fixed rule. But if somebody, one of these people, narrates something which seems to go against general rules and principles, we would say that, look, these people were educated, they were taught, the Prophet trusted them, they were given fatwa in time of the Prophet ﷺ, and they gave this fatwa. So we say their riwayah is very, almost the sanad al-sahih, that they understood. So what they are saying, we will take it as it is. And that's why we would see that there are certain times, there are riwayat which go against qiyas, go against the general rule, general principle, yet because the sahabi is a faqih, we take their riwayah and we leave the general rule. Yes? An example. He's giving a few examples. Yes? So this claim that the Ahnaf, they give preference for qiyas over hadith is in certain things. It's not always. It's like you have two hadiths, hadith A and hadith B. Now, one muhaddith will say, well, hadith A is asah, the sanad is more sahih. And hadith B says, awfaq lil qiyas. It goes more, this is awfaq bil qiyas, it matches up with the other principles more. So one person will say, well, this should be given preference. And the other person will say, well, no, this is given preference. Because this adds up with the other rules of Sharia. So you won't use qiyas to reject the hadith, you can use qiyas to give one hadith preference over another. Yes? And even this, the Ahnaf will sometimes leave the qiyas for a hadith because the Rawi narrating it is a faqih. And he said this, so we'll follow him. Example is, وَلِهَذَا رَوَى مُحَمَّدٌ حديث الأعرابي الذي كان في عينه سوء في مسألة القهقه وترك القياس. What's the masla? The masla is, there's a narration. The narration reached Imam Abu Hanifa and Ahlul Kufa. So when this narration reached them, they had itminan this riwayah. Yes? Later people will say, well, this hadith is weak. It's weak when it reached the chains by which it reached the later muhaddithun, it was weak. But the way it reached Imam Abu Hanifa, Hamad and all the fuqaha in Kufa, it gave them itminan that this hadith is authentic, this riwayah is authentic. Whether it's the chain that we have, whether it's other chain, whether it's multiple narrations, this chain or this story reached the Imam Abu Hanifa, his ashab, via the ulama of Kufa with authenticity. They had itminan that this incident took place. And this incident does not match the qiyas. What's the incident? The Prophet ﷺ performing salah. Correct? Now one Arabi, he was slightly squinted, he couldn't see properly, and he stumbled over. And when he stumbled over, he stumbled in a funny way. So some Sahabi laughed. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, those of you who laughed in salah, go and do wuzu again. Now, if you look at all of the masail of wudu, if you look at quduri as well, is on najasat. Kullu ma kharaja min as-sabilayn. If najasa comes out from the body, is blood impure, not impure? Abu Hanifa says impure, so therefore when that comes out, the wuzu will break. If you vomit, all these impurities. You have all the impurity in masail. He said, wal qahqahatu fi salah. At the end it says quduri. Why? Because Abdullah ibn Mas'ud narrated this hadith. What do we do with this? It goes against all the principle of all the najah, all the naqid of wudu, all the nawaqid of wudu, all those things which break wudu are najasa, impurities, except this one. And it goes against the established principle that impurity leaving the body breaks wudu. But we have this narration via Sahabi who understands. We don't think he misunderstood, he misnarrated it. And the chain, how he reached Imam Abu Hanifa, it was sound. So they said, well, we've got no choice. We say, well, qahqaha fil salah. But because we don't understand it, we said this particular, wherever the circumstances were, based on that, if you do qahqaha, salah, your wudu will break in salah. It goes against qiyas, it goes against all the rules. But it's a narration from a sahabi who is, I think Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who is faqih. So he understands better than us. We'll say, well, we do amal upon this. It doesn't make sense to us, but we go upon it. وَتَرَقَ الْقِيَاسِ, he left the qiyas. Why? Because this sahabi is mujtahid. Sahabi's time, he was a faqih. And he narrated hadith and we say, well, he understood the situation, the mas'ala properly. And he narrated to us, so we'll take it. Even though it doesn't fit of the other principles. So in the waqid of wudu, the principle is impurities leaving the body breaks wudu. And qaqaha. Why? Because qiyas. Because of this riwayah. Do you understand? Similarly, we have a mas'ala. The mas'ala is mas'ala of muhadhat. The mas'ala is that if a woman stands next to a man, then it's a quduri. If a woman stands next to a man, his salah breaks. Now, in all the things that break salah, this is an adab. But it says here that the Prophet ﷺ commanded or instructed the Sahaba that the women should stand at the back. So by not fulfilling the command of Rasulullah ﷺ, you're going against this, so therefore Salah breaks. So this goes against the things that break Salah are Amalu Kathir, your wudu breaking, the Shara'i of Salah being, because the hadith comes, we say you follow the hadith. Similarly, Hadithul Qay, there's a hadith regarding vomiting. So even regarding this different masail, you can look at the details in the Hashia. All of these masail, what do they say? That sometimes they don't fit with the general principles of the bab. Babul wudu, babul salah, these principles and other things, but because they're narrated by people of sahabi who we understand to be fuqaha, well understand, so we take the riwayat. And again, this doesn't work all the time, it's like a general principle. Yes? So another example is Hadithul Sahu. The rule is, the common sense or the logic is what? That when you're doing salam, sajdatul sahwa, the sajdatul sahwa should take place in the salah, not after salah. So we do salam, according to Abu Hanifa, you do salam first, then you do sajdatul sahwa, you do sajda sahwa. So the sajda sahwa is taking place after salah finishes. And really the sahwa is supposed to recompense for the mistake made in salah. But Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, he narrated it as such, he narrated that it should take place afterwards. So you do salam first, then you do the two sajda of sahwa, and you leave the qiyas. So in all of these scenarios, we have certain riwayat which go against the general logic, the general principle, established principles, because the fuqaha, the hadith, the sahabi narrating this are people who say they understood the masala, they probably did not misunderstand what is being said, so therefore we will take their riwayah. That's one principle. Fahim? Now the second type of ruwat, not from the tabi'in, tabu tabi'in, etc., but from the sahaba, is al-ma'rufuna bil-hifdhi wal-adala. That they are obviously sahabi, so they have adala. But they were not fuqaha or ahlul fatwa at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one of them is Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. I mean, obviously his understanding of deen is better than our understanding. However, if his riwayah comes against Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's riwayah, or Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu's riwayah, Umar radiyallahu anhu's riwayah, or his riwayah comes against an established principle, we would say, well, maybe his riwayah is not on the zahir. It needs to be interpreted a different way, so it fits with the others. Because he was not Ahlul. So if you got Ahlul Fatwa, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's riwayah, Abu Hurairah's riwayah, yes, we will say, well, we will take Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's riwayah if they contradict. Or if we have Abu Hurairah's riwayah, and then we have the amal of many tabi'in, or many sahaba, many tabi'in. So we say, well, many sahabi are doing this, many tabi'in are doing this, and Abu Hurairah's got a riwayah, which means that the riwayah is probably not as the zahir seems to be. For him. So in this situation, one reason of giving tarjih, not like, oh, we don't accept any Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala narration, na'udhu billahi min dhalik. We're just saying that one reason to give preference to a riwayah over other is the ijtihad. So in certain cases, some of the riwayat we would consider the sahabi, how much time he spent with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, him being well known for his ijtihad, how long did he spend in the suhbah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. For him, yes? فَإِذَا صَحَّتْ رِوَايَةُ مِثْلِهِمَا. So if you have a hadith like them, and the sanad is sahih, فَإِنْ وَافَقَ الْخَبَرُ الْقِيَاسِ فَلَا خَفَاءَ فِي لُزُمِ الْعَمَلِ بِهِ. And it doesn't go against any higher riwayat, it doesn't go against any established principles, then obviously we take the riwayah. Now, وَإِنْ خَالَفَهُ كَانَ الْعَمَلُ بِالْقِيَاسِ أَوْلَى. Again, this is not always, this is sometimes. And when you say qiyas, it doesn't mean, oh, it doesn't make sense to us. It means that there are already established principles of religion we find from many Quranic verses, many ahadith, and this one riwayah seems to go against it. We will say, well, it's like, for example, even in Usool hadith, we say a hadith is shadh when it goes against a stronger riwayah. So what we're saying here, you might have a riwayah of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala, or one of these sahabi or Arabi who came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam in the time of Hajj, one-off narration. It's not known as like a tulu suhbah. He narrates one thing. There is another riwayah, or another amal, or another thing. This is aqwa dalil. So this aqwa dalil may not be a hadith itself. It may be amal of many sahaba. It may be another hadith. It may be something else. This aqwa dalil, dalail, is we will say these dalil are aqwa than this riwayah. And this riwayah may have a different meaning than we understand it to be. It's not simple. As I said to you before, we're not the madahil. For example, Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi, they didn't say, let's make up rules and let's make up rules to derive a fixed school. They're simply transmitting what their asatiza transmitted to them. Yes? And you have Abdullah Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala in Kufa. And then from him you have many students. From those students, then for example, Ibrahim Nakhai became very well known. From his students, somebody became well known. From his students, many students, and from his students, Hamad became well known. From Abu Hanifa's students, from his students, Abu Hanifa became well known. From Abu Hanifa's students, there were many of them. From them, those three became well known. So they didn't really. So the Usuli fiqh we have here is not let's sit down in a vacuum or in a cave somewhere and say, let's make up some rules and let's use this to derive hadith. We have the masail which were passed down, transmitted bit by bit, or the masail transmitted. Then we work backward to say, what principle did it apply here? For him. Yes? So this is like what we see, we kind of see something like this happening in certain cases. But it's not as simple as that. We have to consider many other things. Like, is the hadith going against is the zahir of the hadith, or our apparent understanding of the hadith going against the Quran? If our understanding of the hadith is going against the Quran, that means that we don't understood the hadith correctly. Maybe it's not as we understood it to be. Is it going against established sunnah? Is it going against established rules that we've understood from other principles? What if the ummah has accepted the hadith? So let's say, for example, there's a hadith from Anas ibn Malik, Abu Hurairah. It goes against established principles. But all the Sahaba, all the Tabi'in have accepted this. The other Sahaba have accepted this. تلقته الأمة بالقبول. Then we say, well, okay, this will have preference. Do you understand? So it's not just simply saying, we just make this up and just leave it one side. It's many things you have to consider. But this is one thing you have to consider as well. The Rawi who is a Sahabi, we look at his faqaha to determine the tarjih, which hadith we give preference to. So in understanding the hadith, doing tatbiq of the hadith, giving one preference over the other, one thing that you consider is the fiqh of the Rawi. Yes? It's not just simply saying, oh, you do amal upon, you leave the hadith. It's not like that. It's a lot of things you have to consider. For him, let's say there's an Arabi, only met the Prophet once. Yes? He narrates a hadith. And it goes against a lot of principles. But all the other tabi do amal upon this, like 20, 30 tabi do amal upon this. There's no khilaf al-amal to this. We say, well, تلقت الأمة بالقبول. So even though he is not known for his fiqh, but he narrated this hadith, and all the tabi do amal upon this, it's worthy of amal. So it's a lot more delicate than just simply the words here. So if you read the words, it might get a bit jari against this, like, oh, leave the hadith one side. It's not like that. Fahim? Is that making sense to everybody? Yes? And we give an example. Again, we're not making this up. This is how we see Sahaba. They operate, they didn't have these principles. But these kind of rules and this kind of approach existed in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. For example, Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrated, Al-wudu'u mimma masatun nar. If the fire touches anything, you have to do wudu. Okay? Now, this is fine. But Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala said to him, أَرَأَيْتَ لَوْ تَوَضَّعْتَ بِمَاءٍ سَخِينٍ أَكُنْتَ تَتَوَضَّأُ مِنْهُ. If, okay, that's what you're saying. If, Abdullah ibn Abbas saying, well, it doesn't make sense. If you were to do wudu with hot water, ma'in sakhin, does the wudu break as well? Because the hot water was touched by fire. So Abdullah, Abu Hurairah says, فَسَكَتَ, and other riwayah says, he said, when I say a riwayah to you of the Prophet ﷺ, don't bring qiyas. Abu Hurairah got a bit upset. So what we're saying is that Abdullah ibn Abbas, he went a bit deep and said, look, and this is not the only reason. We have other athar of the Sahaba as well. That the Sahaba ate meat, they ate meat, and then after that they didn't ever then wudu. So they meant multiple things. But we do see that Abdullah ibn Abbas is kind of critiquing the riwayah. That look, something doesn't seem to add up. Maybe wudu doesn't mean wudu as in you have to wash your hands, face, as we call wudu for salah. But wudu is also meant, sometimes wudu can mean here, just to wash. So when you wash something when you eat something which is cooked, it leaves a bit of taste in your mouth. So rinse it out, wash your hands. Maybe it means that. Maybe it's just mustahab. So maybe what we're saying here is that this is the riwayah. Abu Hurairah is narrating it. Now we compare it to other. We compare it to the amal of Abu Bakr, Umar radiallahu anhu. Imam Muhammad rahmatullah alayhi has mentioned riwayat in the Muwatta where he says that Abu Bakr and Umar, they ate things that touch fire, i.e. cooked meat, and they never done wudu. The Prophet also never done wudu. We compare this riwayah to other things. And along with this, it goes against some qiyas. And that's amal of Sahaba, amal of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We say now this hadith is going to be, it's not as it is. The hadith has to be understood in a different way. For him, either it's mansukh, it was there. For him. Yes? وَإِنَّمَا رَدَّهُ بِالْقِيَاسِ. So Abdullah Mas'ud used qiyas. Abdullah ibn Abbas, he used qiyas. but there are also other riwayat as well, other amal as well, amal of Sahaba, Tabi'in, etc. إذ لو كان عنده إذ لو كان عنده خبر لرواه. Is that what it says in your books? Is that the same text in your books? Yeah, so what we're saying here is if this khabar had been sahih, he would have narrated it. فهم؟ अच्छा. وعلى هذا, another example, ترك أصحابنا رواية أبي هريرة في مسألة المسرات بالقياس. What do you have here? Look, when we look in the Sharia, we find the masla of dhiman. Dhiman means you violate somebody's property, you steal it, you damage it, not steal it, say you damage it because of your negligence. There's two ways of you have to give compensation. If this item is mithli, meaning you can get something similar to it, exactly like it, you give the mithal. So the example, wheat, barley. So if somebody destroys 1 kilo of your wheat, he has to give you 1 kilo of wheat. If that item doesn't have an exact match, like a sheep or a cow or a calf or a goat, you value the goat. You say you kill this goat, you run over his goat with a car, for example. Now what do you have to do? Give compensation. Now, you can't get exact size, shape, goat. So you value the goat and you give that money. So in both things here, if you look at it, is that what? When you have something that is mithli, meaning it has an equal, you give the equal, 1 liter of milk, 1 liter of milk. And if you can't get that item, you give the price. Okay? So, masla of musarrat is what? That if a person does what? A person sells another person a camel, a sheep, a goat, which has udders, an animal, which has udders and gives milk. Now, the person, what does he do? Or maybe not on purpose, he just something coincidentally. What did he do? He didn't milk it for a day or two. So when you start milking it, it gives a lot of milk. So the person thinks, oh, this camel that I'm buying, this calf that I'm buying, this goat that I'm buying, it gives a lot of milk. And as time goes off, it starts going back to, it's returned to its average. And that average is lower than expected. So now the person who bought that thinks, well, when I was milking it initially, because you hadn't milked it properly for a long time, the udders were full, it was given a lot of milk. Now it's gone back to its norm, and that's not enough. I don't want it like this. I was deceived. So in this situation, he says you can return it. And the Prophet ﷺ says you return the camel, the goat, the she-camel, the goat, whatever, and you give sa'an min tamar. You give sa'an min tamar. Now giving sa' meaning give 1 volume, 1 kilo of tamar, for example, not kilo, but around that much, like kilo. Now what we look at, we say like, in all the other hadiths, all the other fatawa of Sahaba, Tabi'un, all of them, what's the masala? Is if you have a mithli, so what's that sa' min tamar? That is an exchange for the milk that you use. So you bought the calf of him, the sheep of him, the goat of him, for a day, you bought it off him for 3 days, for example. After 3 days, you realize that it's not giving the milk you thought it was giving. Now this sa' min tamar is in exchange for the milk that you use. But the thing is, this sa' min tamar is not the same as milk. It's not a mithli. And the sa' min tamar can't be equal to the milk in all circumstances. You may have milk less, you may have milk more. Return it after 1 day, after 3 days. So what we're saying here is that this hadith of musarrat is not on the zahir. It doesn't mean that it's wajib to give the tamar. So what we say here is that the rule is if whatever you use, you have to give compensation for it. So this can't be, this sa'an min tamar can't be the recompense of that milk because it wouldn't fit. Because tamar and sa' are not the mithal. And if you take it as like a price, the sa' can't be equal to every single circumstance. It's exactly the same amount sa'. What we will say here is that this is probably a recommendation. So this hadith we take it as, so we'll use all of these principles, say, well, this hadith, looking at the other principles, the fiqh of the rawi, all of these things, we'll say, it probably means that this sa'un min tamar is a recommendation from the Prophet ﷺ. You bought it off him, you use his sheep for a while, give the recompense, and because he's inconvenienced, a bit of inconvenience, you took it for a few days, give a sa' min tamar just to not cause any hard feelings. It will probably recommendation, or other interpretations as well. Because to take it as a zahir, this is wajib, that this sa' min tamar is the recompense of the milk that you use, it goes against the other principles we have understood. What are these principles? That in mithli you have to give a mithal, milk you have to give the same amount of milk, or you give the price of the milk. And sa' min tamar does not add up. So it can't be the recompensation. So we wouldn't take the hadith to mean it's a recompensation of the milk that you use. Instead, we will say this is actually a recompense of, this is like a token or some kind of, or we say exchange or just a gift to lighten the transaction, so the person is not, to remove any grief or any kind of rancor you may have in your heart that, oh, he didn't lie to me, or I was actually giving milk or something like that, so that it all fits together. So as I said before, we don't reject it outright, but this is one thing that we can use to give tarjih or to understand how the hadith should be looked at. Fahimt? Yes? And then inshallah we continue from here tomorrow. What are the shara'it? So we look at a type of rawi, and then so that's one thing. One wajh of tarjih and understanding the riwayah is who's the rawi. And along with this now is certain things we need to consider when doing amal upon a khabar wahid. Okay? Yes? And I said before, if the khabar wahid is talaqqathu al-ummatu bil qabul, if it's accepted, everybody accepts, the whole ummah has accepted this, then there's no need for us to do all this analysis. Because the ummah accepting is a dalil that this is maqbool. But if it's not talaqqatul ummatu bil qabul in terms of the early tabi'in and tabu tabi'in, then it's analysis. We need to analyze it and make sure that we check it properly, scrutinize it properly to make sure we're understanding the hadith the way it should be understood. Okay, let's stop here inshallah.